I mean, you're on now, but...
Make sure what, Jaden? Never mind.
I'm going to explain movie cliche.
All right, we're a little late today. John was working with some kids. They are a little bit confused what schedule they're on and where they're supposed to be, so that took a little longer than we thought it was going to. But the good news is we got the kids squared away, and now we can get you guys squared away with something new here on Monday. And actually, the sun looks like it might be coming out here on Carrington Ave today. So what we're going to make is this lemon polenta cake, because I still had some of that lemon curd from Friday, and I kind of tricked out this recipe that I was looking at to change it up a little bit, and I wanted to incorporate my sourdough starter to this polenta cake. So into the sourdough starter, I'm going to put a cup of sugar. This is going to make a polenta cake, which will be great for tea later on. So a cup of sugar, and then 3/4 cup of butter, which is like about a stick and a half. Now, ideally this should be creamed, but I didn't want to get my mixer out today, so I'm just going to fork blend this all in here with the sugar. If it's soft, if you had a regular hand beater, you could probably make that work too. You can probably melt it and incorporate it into this. I'm going to need that later too, but I bent my fork.
Hey, our friend Dan is watching. It's nice that you have all that free time, Dan. Shouldn't you be doing that puzzle instead?
Oh my gosh, we finished an impossible snowman puzzle the day that it was snowing. All right, so I got the butter, I got the sourdough starter, I got the sugar, and we're going to give you this recipe over on our YouTube channel, John and Heather Perfetto. We need you guys to go over there and subscribe and like those videos and get our count up there. All right, I'm also going to add into this lemon curd that we made on Friday, and we made those lemon meringue tarts using those big marshmallows. So I'm going to put that right in there. Probably stop blending with the fork. This is going to take 3 eggs. These eggs are from our chicken coop. I just took them a little while, but they're room temperature eggs. We just went out there. Whoa, see that one? That one jumped out of the bowl. So mix these into here. It's going to take 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Actually, that's the other one. This pinch of salt. It's take 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. I know what that looks like. You guys can use a measuring spoon. I know what it looks like. And then it's going to take 3/4 cup of polenta and 2 cups of, I called for almond flour, but I don't have all of that in almond flour, so I'm going to use some almond flour and some coconut flour. So 3/4 cup of polenta. And this was the same polenta that we made the polenta fries out of. I have about 1 cup of almond flour here, and you could use almond flour, chickpea flour, coconut flour. This is, except that I added the starter to it, this could be gluten-free, but I added the starter because I had it. And then my other cup of coconut flour. All right, so this is just a dense, super moist, lemony polenta cake. And when it comes out of the oven baking, I'm going to bake it at 385 for about 45 minutes. When it comes out of the oven, it's just going to be like really lemony and rich and dense. Now, if you didn't have the lemon curd, you could zest the lemon and put the juice of lemon in it, but we had that beautiful lemon curd that was all the butter and eggs and lemon juice from Friday, so I wanted to use that up because I discovered this is not a lemon meringue house. So when I took that same tart recipe I made after we went off camera, I just want to say too, I put chocolate chips into the warm tart shells, and then I put the marshmallows on top of that, and that was more like a s'mores tart marshmallow. So the chocolate marshmallow ones, those disappeared. The lemon meringue, we fed the chickens. Nobody was really into that. So I hope you guys had a better Mother's Day result with whatever you decided to cook. You know, we showed the guacamole and the lemon tarts. If you guys made any of these recipes, go ahead and get them up right here. Type in the comments, send us your pictures. I love seeing what you guys did with the recipes that we made here. So this goes into a sprayed, and I did put a piece of parchment paper underneath it just so it'll loosen any size cake pan, into a 385 oven for 45 minutes. The next thing that I want to show you is a recipe for puff pastry. Now, I have never made puff pastry. I bought frozen sheets of puff pastry because when I made puff pastry in the bakeries in the Four Seasons Hotel and the other bakeries I worked in Boston, it's such a production, and you need a dough sheeter because it's all about refrigerating it and putting cold butter into flour and folding it and putting it in the refrigerator and bringing it back out and folding it and running it through the dough sheeter and making these books. And it's just this ongoing, almost impossible project. You're always making a dough for like 3 days down the road. So I never attempted to make this, but because I'm here now with a lot of time, I decided that I was going to make this recipe that is called a rough puff or a short puff pastry. And that is something that you'll see a lot on the, you need cold butter, so I did take my butter out. You see on that British baking show, they talk about rough puff or quick puff pastry. So this is going to be a real quick way to make this. We're going to shorten this time up into about 30 minutes by just go ahead and doing all the process. And the whole idea between the puff pastry is you want to get the lamination to occur, which is when the butter gets trapped and the steam makes the flour expand, and then you get those crisp, flaky layers of puff pastry that you find in like the Napoleon dessert. But we're going to make ours a savory dessert. So you have to take cold butter and cut cold butter into your flour. And we're going to do it a little bit more than a pie dough. We want this to be really crumbly and really sandy looking, so that every tiny fleck of butter gets incorporated with flour, gets mixed up with a piece of flour, a piece of butter with a piece of flour. So this was just flour and salt. And I'll go ahead, I'll give you that recipe too. And then you can make either sweet treats or savory treats with puff pastry. It's a really versatile thing, but nobody wants to attempt it. You can buy it in the grocery store, buy sheets of it. Nobody wants to attempt it because it is a process. I know some people make some of these things by taking the croissant dough that's in the foil cans and they use it. They use that in place of puff pastry. So this is 1/6 of a cup of water in my recipe, but yours is going to be a little bit more because I'm going to give you the double one. I already made half of this recipe this morning. And when you go with it in the bowl here, you're going to want to put more water in it, but don't, okay? We're going to bring this thing together over on the table right here. And it's the folding and blending of it that is going to make it into this puff pastry dough.
This is the heat from your hands.
Yeah, it is making it more of a dough.
It's part of the chemical process, though, right?
Yeah, to incorporate that flour in and around, sleeve roll, in and around your dough. And then we're going to pick all this up off the table as we do this rolling and shaping. And the more we roll and shape it, the more the structure of the flour is going to create our beautiful dough. All right, so that's come together. Now you want to try and make it a rectangle, as much as possible, a rectangle, as you're working. So one side is always going to be longer than the other side. And then we're going to make 6 to 7 what's called a book fold out of this. And here's where, when you're making this in like a hotel or a restaurant, this is where it gets complicated and takes up so much time. They have like a dough sheeter. And I mean, we were making like sheets of dough that were the size of this counter that we're trying to manipulate through a dough sheeter. So that's why I never made it in restaurants. So a book fold is 1/3 comes to the middle and 1/3 covers that. Now we have our rectangles. That was one fold. Turn it, roll it, try to keep the shape. It'll get easier when it gets more manageable. So book fold 1/3, 1/3. That's 2 out of 7. So you could do 6 to 7. I say the more the merrier. Get it back into your shape. Roll it. I don't know, Jen, can you see that it's coming together more as a dough than when I first dumped it out on this crumbly surface? Okay, so this is 3. I don't know if I'm gonna do all 7 because it's just a process. So you just have to go through. You have to go through the process. And then after that, you can put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes up to overnight. You can also freeze this dough if you wrap it tightly. You can put it in the freezer. Label it. I keep putting stuff in the freezer saying, I'll know what that is. I'll know what that is. But you know what? I never remember what it is. So label it and date it. When you put it in your freezer, it'll save you a temper tantrum in the long run. So this is getting a lot easier to work with now that I'm on my fourth fold. So since I'm going to come back to this, I'm going to put 4 finger marks in it. Now I know I did 4 folds, and I'm going to be able to come back after I show you what I'm going to do with these things and know that I still need 3 more. Still need 3 more to go. So here's what the dough looks like after it was made and left in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. And you could see with all that extra rolling, it's a little bit softer, it's a little bit more pliable, it's ready to get turned into something. So what I want to make for you is, it's down there on that plate, is this beautiful asparagus tart, but you could use any vegetable. And then these asparagus turnovers, just because they're cute, but you could use any. I'll just tell you some other things you can do in it. And then I'm going to show you this one little appetizer too, just as a bonus app. So to make the asparagus tart, a clean rolling pin, and try to roll it without adding too much dough, definitely not the plastic wrap, without adding too much flour to your dough, because that changes the structure of the dough. It turns it into something completely different. So wherever possible, if you have a rolling mat, if you have a wooden cutting board, I roll right on the granite countertop. This is going to get rolled out pretty thin. There's so many things you could do with this. You can make little vessels and fill it with that lemon curd that we had and top it with blueberries and raspberries. You could make a big size tart, or you can make these small little appetizers. You can make pommiers, which are the elephant ears with cinnamon and sugar. There's so many things you could do with puff pastry, but what we're going to do with puff pastry is just these 2 simple little appetizers or hors d'oeuvres or tea snacks, whatever you want. So, okay, so asparagus, I talked about this before. Asparagus has a natural snap in it that tells you where to cut it. For the little bundles, I just put 2 down right on the puff pastry, and then I sprinkled it with this Parmesan cheese inside. A drizzle of olive oil. You could also toss your olive oil in a bowl prior to this with salt, pepper, Parmesan, and olive oil. And then I just fold the corners over, tuck it in a nice little blanket. You could put prosciutto in here. You could put ham in here. You could put fruit jelly inside this. You could put anything you want, but this is what I had, asparagus, so I'm making a little asparagus appetizer. And then I'm going to drizzle the outside of that again with this beautiful olive oil from Italy. And I'm going to top it with Parmesan cheese. Now I'm going to put this onto my stone that I have back here. The puff pastry has to go in a hotter oven than the polenta cake, so I'm going to have to wait on this until the cake comes out to get that done. Now on this one, for the tart, what I did was I kind of imagined, just sketched out a little bit of an outside, and I folded the edge so that the exterior would be a little bit puffier to hold whatever was in here. Now inside this, you could put pesto, you could put cheese, you could put Parmesan, you could put bechamel, you could put sun-dried tomatoes, you could put artichokes, you could put olives, you know, whatever you want to put. But what I'm going to demonstrate is this asparagus. I just want to put it on here ahead of time. And I'm going to put a little bit of Parmesan down inside and a little bit of olive oil. Okay, and then I'm going to cut my asparagus. I'm going to break off the ends, and I'm going to cut my asparagus into half spears like this. Just do the best that you can. And I did these ones ahead of time. And then when I layer them on this tart, or whatever you're going to put on this tart, you could be as artful as you want to be with it. Okay, so I'm going back opposite sides with the asparagus. Roasted red pepper, sun-dried tomatoes, prosciutto, whatever you like. I feel like I have a hole there, so I'm going to go back and get another asparagus and cut it to fill up my hole. Okay, and then this is going to get a drizzle of olive oil, a little salt and pepper, and some of the shaved, look at this Parmesan Reggiano right on the back there. Some of the shaved Parmesan. And I just did it on a regular cheese grater because that's what I have. I didn't have a Parmesan grater, so I just ran it across here, and I got these beautiful shreds of this Parmesan cheese. So this is going to go in like a 400-degree oven for about 15-20 minutes to get those crispy little tarts that you have back there. All right, then the last thing I'm going to show you is with this asparagus, what I did with those two other ones. I think I did 3 each. Okay, so I had this bacon. It was in the freezer, and I just took 3 spears of asparagus and wrapped this bacon around it. You could wrap them singly. I think it's better if you wrap like 2 or 3 together. The single ones just kind of cook into nothing before the bacon cooks. So I like doing it with 3. And this is a great little appetizer. Or if you make this as an appetizer and you have any leftovers, you could chop it up just like this and throw it in spaghetti or pasta or risotto, whatever you're making. And then these guys I just put in a little pan with some olive oil in it and crushed black pepper on them. And these are going to bake at the high temperature too, so I'm not going to put these in quite yet either because that polenta cake is cooking in there. So that's what I had for you today. Puff pastry, polenta cake, and a couple little appetizers that you could throw together and have with soup or salad or tea. And I'm calling today Make It Monday because I think that we should all try to do something that is outside of our comfort zone and learn a new skill. And so mine today was rough puff pastry. I'm really glad I did it because I think that the product that we got in the final outcome was beautiful. I love the look of this. I would have loved this with tomatoes. And you can see the back of it too. Has a great even finish on it. So baking it on a pizza stone is my tip for that. We don't have a restaurant today. We're going to give the restaurants a break. I'm sure everybody is recovering from their very unusual Mother's Day weekend, and I just want to shout out to all my friends who own restaurants in Milford and say great job. I'm so glad you guys made it through it, and I hope that there's a light at the end of this tunnel for all of you coming soon. And John has something to say, but he's not going to show his beautiful unshaven face. John's been working really hard with like 25 kids, one-on-one, just to get them to complete assignments, and he's doing a really great job. The kids are really responding to him, so we're gonna cut John some slack today.
Yeah, I'll tell you, these kids, they deserve the shout out. You know, I mean, this is I'm not gonna tick off my buddy Angelo and say it's uncharted waters anymore, but I mean they're doing a great job, and they are teaching us little things about computers. You know, they're the digital natives. I mean, this is their world. This digital world is their world, and the adults, we're just guests in it. We are guests in this whole process, and
it's like your parents not being able to program the VCR. You know.
I mean, just a super shout out to these kids. College, high school. My son Jaden's home. You know, they're miserable home. They want to be back together with their friends, and they're doing great. I just can't say enough how proud I am of all the kids that I'm working with. So I'll turn it back to you.
That's all I got today. I'm still waiting on the weather to warm up so we can go out and check the beehive. We got somebody else in town who says a beehive has set up camp underneath their patio deck, so we might go over there and see if we can. I'm not sure if it's a swarm or if it was wintered over there, but we're going to see if we can help her out with that. But we need the proper weather for that, and we need to get out and fix our hive. I mean, we opened our pool on one day, it was beautiful out, and then the next day it snowed, so go figure. But I'm still hoping to get out to the hives. If not on Wednesday, then I'm going to bring you a cauliflower crisp and a special secret sauce and probably some coconut chicken tenders. And that's all I got until we eat again.